and I want to introduce Kathy Ruttenberg. Kathy Ruttenberg is a longtime friend. We went to school together and we survived it, so that's a really good thing. We in New York City. Her work has been exhibited throughout the world, including New York, London, Iowa, France, Korea, and Italy. She and her work have been featured in media, including the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Boston Globe, the Independent, Artpress, New York Post. And I even, when I wasn't even planning to, saw her on CBS Sunday Morning, and I was like, what the hey? That's Kathy. Emerging from the New York's 1980 East Village, her allegorical paintings contributed to the vitality of the figurative expressionism of the era. Over the last 4 decades, her work has gradually shifted from painting towards an emphasis on sculpture, and you'll see that. She uses ceramic, bronze, and light to explore themes of ecofeminism, animal liberation, and sexuality. I'm so excited to have Kathy here with me, and she doesn't usually do this. So I am really thrilled that she's braving us, and I hope we're all really nice to her. So I'm going to stop share and let her share.
That's a great introduction. Thank you.
Oh, you're wonderful. So thank you so much for doing this. And we'll just keep admitting people.
So do we start?
Shall we start sharing?
Yes, yes. You should start sharing. Excellent.
You have to do presenter view, no? Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
It looks perfect. It looks like it's in presentation mode.
But you have to, yeah, okay. Okay.
Good luck.
Okay, thank you. So let me know when you want me to start.
You're welcome to start now.
Okay. Hello, and thank you for this invitation to talk about my work. And I'm starting my presentation with a few transitional works I created as I was shifting away from my brooding, lonely, urban, psychological interiors of a prior period, with many life experiences influencing a new direction, such as a breakup, a dog, a trip to Costa Rica, purchasing a kiln, moving full-time to the country. I was cultivating a new visual vocabulary filled with light and fantasy. I began always having a watercolor notebook in my purse, which initiated the practice of catching my moments of inspiration. The highlights of inspiration being in the field, visiting wild places to view wildlife. This exercise is now key to finding new inspiration to enhance my visual vocabulary. Let's see, oops. Oops. Oh, I see, sorry, I got it. I'd like to move through these early pieces to show you the evolution of how I arrived to my current vision, influenced by the tentative moment of apocalyptic tension we are now experiencing. The door blew wide open when I left New York City in the early 90s to live in a rural area. A rebirth of my palette, rich with color and new inspiration, exploded. A new poetic voice emerged as I focus on the magic beauty of my surroundings, inspiring fairy tale narratives. Here are a few paintings from that time. As the focus of the work moved outdoors, the climate, the season, the trees, the landscape all played a part in my narrative. The fall landscape is a metaphor for the emotional angst between the characters in this painting. Here's another painting where the landscape is the story. This painting initiated when I discovered a wetland on my property because of a swarm of dragonflies. Once I had command of the ceramic medium, I started using it to portray my narratives. Funnily enough, my voice changed as I moved from painting to sculpture. I felt free to add surreal elements, which was the seed to the symbolism, which is so integral to how my work and style developed. As my practice in ceramic evolved, a symbolic language began to develop, which started to include a repertoire of characters, which I used in various ways to support my narratives, where even a leaf has an anthropomorphic quality. As in much of my current process with my work, there are layered meanings that become apparent as the piece develops. I visualize the moment before and the moment after, thinking how one moment is fine and the next you are faced with a catastrophe. Here's an elevated shot. The theme of returning to the earth after death has also developed as a reoccurring theme. Dead animals in the forest decay into the habitat. This sculpture is personally quite powerful for me, having had a bout with breast cancer. Rendering the breast of this figure with trees felt incredibly empowering, also quite healing to imagine the figure's dress as a platform for a magical wildlife moment. A watercolor with the same theme eventually emerges with a dreamlike sensation, possibly reminding me of the story of Goliath. The previous sculpture inspired this watercolor, which is a different sequence than I usually follow. With my new vocabulary of symbolism and a growing cast of characters, a heart appears in reference to all that I was feeling. Living in a rural setting, I have become a tree with my feet firmly planted in the ground. All these works developed thematically as somewhat autobiographical and anthropomorphic. As the language of playful anthropomorphic symbolism influenced by my surroundings developed, I felt I had really found my voice with these narratives that felt deep, honest, and playful. With this large wall sculpture, I used actual branches, which I think enhanced the drama of the sculpture. As you can see, it's quite large. Even this little tree takes on a life. My walks in the forest near where I live are an endless source of inspiration, and I usually return with a head full of ideas that I need to rush to note, as the experience is almost like waking from a dream as I exit the forest. The goat man who in the sculpture is dancing with a tree took on lots of symbolic meaning during the emotionally turbulent time when I was separating from my husband. I was a tree deeply rooted in my life upstate and blind with no eyes, creating the two figures embracing simultaneously at the scale they were rendered was technically ambitious. The narrative evolved from personal to communal when used for a public works installation. Tree Hugger was the genesis of this sculpture. It was fascinating to me to see how placement of a sculpture adds meaning, depth, and dimension. Certainly a challenge to place work on the streets of New York City. And here, I just like this shot with the rain. In 2011, I was invited to an artist in residence at a tiger reserve in South Central India. On site, we experienced an incredible array of wildlife. I did a lot of watercolors while I was there and returned to my studio full of crazy visuals from my trip. And I, misspelled lose with loose, as you can see written on the deer. But again, the incredible opportunity to experience wildlife in its native habitat is extremely fulfilling. It's important to feel the air and the light, experience the culture. India is quite intense, certainly in Eiffel. This is the second sculpture I did returning from India, so deeply appreciative of the experience that enabled me to break existing protocol and push the technical boundaries further to fabricate my vision. The term earth exhaled is used in a poem by John Bettelman in 1937 regarding industrialization, but also used to identify a scientific concept. The solid earth breathes as volcanoes exhale gases like carbon dioxide, which are essential in regulating global climate. But I'm using this title as a metaphor for what we keep guarded inside and what we decide to show and share. The inside-outside phenomena is an ongoing intrigue I research often in my work. And as you can see, this is the rear and it's cut out. So there's a figure inside, and that's the inside-outside aspect I was referring to. The thrill of walking through the tropical jungle is exemplified by this piece. The forest is dense with diversity and endlessly full of both magic and mystery. And this is one of the watercolors that I was referring to that I do as just referenced for sculptures. And it's just a tool for conceiving my sculptures. And here is another one. And now returning regularly to the tropical forest in Costa Rica, there are pieces continually developing with the forest theme and notebooks of watercolors. And I'm just going to show you detail of the piece. And then just a few watercolors that just inspire the sculptures that I do when I'm traveling. Well, I do them here too, but yes, I'm always doing watercolors. So. And the one on the right, I just did on the plane, just kind of dreaming about my travel. And the one on the left, I did while I was in the forest. And this is another just dreaming of the trip. And this one.
Oh, it's in the dishwasher.
A trip to both the Arctic and the Antarctic was mind-blowing, like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I went first to the Antarctic. I might never have had such a stimulating, exhilarating adventure, as it was all so unfamiliar and novel. I had so much fun once we got through the Drake Passage and the nausea subsided. Drake Passage is famous for being one of the roughest seas between Cape Horn and Antarctica. This one is my favorite piece of the series. And what fun I had portraying the icy waters. The Arctic felt different. I sensed the challenge of both the wildlife and the Inuit population, but very much enjoyed the wildlife sightings we managed to see. And again, the imagination was triggered, experiencing breathtaking landscapes. I also imagine there's a bit of luck in what is seen from trip to trip. I had an exhibition titled Ice Age, which included work from both the Arctic and Antarctic inspirations. This piece specifically references the connection of species that create a habitat. And I just had this idea of chaining different climates together. I thought that'd be really interesting, and calling it one ocean, one climate. In the Arctic, a bloody hole was a sign of a polar bear that had been there. And then we saw a beluga whale, which was just breathtaking. And finally, here is a watercolor from the book of watercolors I did on that trip. In preparing for the talk, I came across this fun little sconce from that same year. I'm in the middle of an oceanic theme now, so it was a fun discovery and will be an important reference as I carry on with this oceanic theme. Here I was invited to participate in a curated invitational at the Roger Williams Botanical Center in Providence, Rhode Island. The curator offered to me any aspect of the Botanical Center, and I immediately responded to the idea of creating a fountain in this urn. One of my most giant ceramic figures is in the background to the right. If you can see, he's even way taller than the exit sign. And the mermaid is now resting in my little garden pond. I am memorized by the beauty of moths. The theme of this piece began with being heartsick at the decline in moth abundance. And this piece very much felt like a powerful transitional piece, as now I am portrayed not just on the ground, but am the ground. I have a barred owl that lives by my house. I feel there is a magical connection when I see the owl and we lock eyes. Okay, sometimes little playful little pieces lead me on interesting paths, as with this piece where I use a moth as a base. From moth as base, I move into this piece where the figure stands on the back of a monarch butterfly holding the sun high over her head, which to me is like a beam of optimism during the darkest hour. The sun is almost like a shamanistic weapon fighting darkness. The afterlife scenario on her dress reminds me of the Henri Rousseau painting, The Dream. The use of the monarch butterfly imagery as the base for the figure implies the freedom of flight to the mysterious fertile breeding ground, escaping to fantasy. This was a kind of a pandemic concept. And the fascination of how to play with water is an element that runs through a lot of narrative in much of my work. Initially, the intention of this sculpture was merely another chapter in the evolution of a theme I've continued to develop of character as landscape. During the firing, a power glitch caused the flame to go out, unbeknownst to me, as the gas kiln shed is outside. With the reports of the kiln opened during a critical phase of the firing, the temperature crashed. I was devastated, as I had spent quite a bit of time glazing this intricate sculpture, using at least 40 different mixtures of various glazes and underglazes. After the firing, I felt blinded by frustration, so it took a while till I could see the beauty of the powerful imagery on the surface. I let go that it was not what I had intended and thought if I named it climate crisis, I would be liberated of personal expectations. I created a crown of dead birds below a chemical yellow sun in order to enhance the narrative. And here's a detail of the crown of birds. And here's a detail of the base. And here's the back detail. As you can see, the story wraps around the whole figure. This is another sculpture I started during the pandemic, where the subject matter was influenced by the new crazy time we were living through. The controversy regarding masks became a subject matter for this sculpture. Could being feral be a safer status than hiding behind a mask? The summer of 2022, my area was inundated with a terrible drought. I saw my pond drain and nervously watched the aquatic species as their habitat disappeared. How do we watch these scenarios and not feel helpless rage? The sun, stereotypically thought of as a symbol of positivity, takes on another meaning for me as I was working on the sculpture with its relentless power to overheat the earth. I love sculpture as often solutions to challenges require creativity, needing the wings, needing the wings to give a weightless feeling. I tested creating wings from laser cut metal and felt it was a successful solution. And this theme, the theme for this piece is a wetland, as you can see. And here's a detail of the girl standing in the wetland. This is a vase that I created for a show in LA last summer, and I'm going to spin it. So this will be fun for you to see. I guess I should have music to this one, right? Oh, sorry. In 2018, I was invited to do a public works installation with the Broadway Mall up and down Broadway in New York City. The snail, which has had a presence in my work for some time and in many reinventions, seemed a perfect character to develop for this public works installation, In Dreams Awake. I love the playful twist of the concept of a snail's pace in contrast to the fast pace of the New York City streets. This piece is now at the De Cordova Museum in Boston, scheduled to be part of an exhibition opening this spring. And this is another just shot that I like, that you could see the proportions. I had been approached at the end of the Broadway Mall's installation by the Battery Conservancy. This gate was for the Urban Farm, a project teaching children about growing their own food. The sculptures from the Broadway Mall's project apparently were appropriately nuanced in subject matter that the Battery felt I would be a good fit for their project. And here's a detail of the gate. And I just thought this would be fun for you to see. Here's the final pattern ready to go to the foundry. The detail was excruciating during the initial phase, but once I was in this headspace, I became obsessively neurotic about every little detail being perfectly in place. I also started to work with laser cut metal. This process involves the metal being cut from a CAD drawing. It's amazing that this process starts with a line drawing. And the same fence installed at a private home. My ongoing fascination grows every time I cross the stream in the forest on my daily walks, whether it's a frozen winter day or, as in this watercolor, a vibrant summer's day. This focus remains a constant inspiration, being the seed for larger projects. I kept thinking about water, finding myself at this point fascinated with its reflective quality. This little piece is a test to play with an idea I had about reflections. I painted a little resin face and then placed it in front of the fish near the character's feet to create a sense of reflection. This one was very much on my mind as I began visualizing a large fountain installation. I had been developing a visual that had the familiar sense of a personal experience, my own mythological fairy tale. The painting of Ophelia by Sir John Everett Millais is such profound, beautiful imagery that is always in the back of my head as a strong romantic barometer. Mine is a different story, but the influence is undeniably strong. I totally underestimated the time needed to fabricate this piece. There was no time to hesitate. I was working 17 hours a day, 7 days a week for a few months. And as well, I had a team helping me. All the components needed to come together before even being able to visualize the fountain. My intention was to portray a melancholy aura while the character soaks with passive tranquility, powerless to change the inevitable. A man reliving the history of inescapable evil as the Garden of Eden etched on the back of the tree implies. Reflecting on an abundance of global catastrophic incidents, I had hoped to portray a mood with this piece that might give pause for thought before twilight arrives. The starkness of the urban setting of the gallery patio helped highlight this sensation. Here are two views of the installation. Oops, sorry. Here are two views of the installation. Water flows from the branch nose of the tree, and the back of the tree shows that Adam and Eve sculpted on the back. And here's the resin tub and top that hold the water. And air pump in the heart added to the drama. And that's it. That's my talk.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this. Well, I think, you know, some of the, I have quite some comments that maybe we could speak for a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna end show.
Okay.
And stop share, right? Isn't that?
Yes, that would be great.
There I am.
That-
And now I share screen.
Or you can just, if you want to
Video.
turn on your
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hi, this is
Hi.
so fantastic. You didn't need music. It was fine.
I hope
So
it wasn't too long.
no, you're kidding. This is like half an hour. You're a genius.
Okay, good.
So, you know, some of the comments in the chat were just, you know, such beautiful sculptures. They're just amazing, fantastic. Love the gate. I wanted to ask something about, and there are other questions, so I can, and people, you know, I think we're 19 of us. So if people want to unmute and ask questions, you can do that. But, you know, I love that so many of your pieces include high heels and sometimes fishnets. So I wonder, and sometimes they're barefoot and sometimes they're underwater, but you know, I want to understand the high heels and the fishnets, or at least the high heels. So what is your thinking when you're doing that? Is that trying to, you know, put something, some counterpoint to nature or something like that? Or
Yes, counterpoint to nature and also feminism, because you know, what we're expected to be as women, and you know, just I it just comes naturally to me, and I have just kind of pursued that and pursued the aspect, but I think it has some personal things as well. I do have problems with my feet as I'm growing older, and just thinking about you know, the sexy appearance of women, that, you know, how it's just kind of stereotyped in what we're expected.
right. And I love that so many of your pieces, whether they're of trees or nature or human, that there's often a neutral face on the person.
Yeah,
It's not,
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I'm trying to fit
yeah.
it into the landscape, so it's, you know, it is one with the landscape. And you know, I feel like my answer about the high heels wasn't as clear, but you know, it's just been kind of an evolution, because I feel like now there's landscape on the legs. So it started with fishnets and high heels, and pretty much the figures still have high heels, but the shoes and the, you know, whatever aspect of the body have become part of the landscape. Like I feel like I've just so integrated into my landscape here, living here, and wherever I find myself, I just am so mesmerized with the wild landscapes.
Yeah. And somebody said, do you feel differently about your work when it evolves from personal work to a sculpture on a New York City avenue, such as the tree hugger? Do you feel differently when it evolves to being a public sculpture, basically?
I mean, am I less close to it? But I felt like it was so fascinating to me that it started as a very personal piece. As I said, that it was about, the dance with my husband, who was such a different person, to more about, just diversity, and that what, the city offers is such a diverse culture, and that we need to dance with each other. So I find that fascinating, and I didn't even have to explain that. That just happened. So that's what
Right.
I'm saying. It was just incredible. It was really incredible to see my work on Broadway, and that was incredible. And it was there for a year. So that was
I saw it. I saw it when I just happened to be there and saw it. Yeah.
oh, that's funny.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So, if anyone wants to unmute and speak, or talk to Kathy, that you're welcome to do that.
Yes, let's all chat.
Hi, Kathy. I'm
Hi.
so glad that I was able to catch this lecture tonight. I
Thank you.
had more of maybe an observation. You talked about how the laser cut metal is derivative of your line drawings.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because your sculptures carry so much information from your watercolors. To me,
Yeah, they do.
have a really soft, watercolory feeling, and I'm really enjoying that connection. It was interesting to hear you talk about the line quality and the metal as well.
It's so interesting because watercolors are obviously water-based, and clay is water-based. So I just find that so interesting, and that the fire of the kiln refers back to watercolors, because the glaze is unpredictable, sort of how watercolor can be. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I'm also imagining the scale, like you've mentioned a couple of times, the scale of these things is so huge. And so I'm thinking they're heavy, they're bulky.
Yeah, they're heavy, they're bulky. I do them in pieces, because I have a big enough kiln, but it's not a huge kiln,
Yeah.
So, I have a gas, I can't really do large electric. I have the large kiln I use is gas. So
Thank you.
yeah, I cut everything into pieces. And yes, the cutout, the laser cutouts is just from a drawing, if you can imagine. That's the program that you give and to the place here that cuts the metal for me. And it's amazing.
Thank you.
Some of you, oh, okay, go ahead. Yes, Noreen.
I was wondering, are the watercolors for you, or are they for?
That's a great question, because recently, to make this book, we photographed like 9,000 watercolors, and they're just in books. So I would never want to break the book up. They're just kind of my personal journals. So I don't ever see selling them. They're just my library of inspiration. And if I'm ever feeling down, or creatively bankrupt, I can just go and look through these books and feel very inspired by my own work, which is a lot of fun.
Thank you for sharing. I liked it all.
Thank you so
fascinating.
much. Oh, thank you.
There was also a comment about, some of your work just looks sort of fantastical, and then others so sad. What are you feeling about the changing environment? Is one person asked.
Oh, yes, very sad about the changing environment. And it's just something that now it's always in the back of my head. And I just feel like I just feel like it is influencing, as I said in my talk, it is influencing my vision of my work. Like, I just feel like the early work was just so playful and light. And the work now has just a darker, deeper base to it.
Right. And another person asked, where's the last sculpture located?
That is in storage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there was some interest in it, but it's, it's a difficult thing to house. Like, I have sold some of the fountains, but they go either to California or Florida, just because you can't have them in the winter, obviously, because there'd be freeze. That would just stop like the fountain in my garden, I have to take away in the winter.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Are all your sketches in watercolor or also in charcoal or pencil?
There's some pencil drawings, but mostly watercolor. I just love watercolor, and I have small sets that just fit in my purse. So, and I guess I'm a really boring person to travel with because I'm always watercoloring wherever I go. And I find airplanes amazing because there's no phone, there's no disturbance. It's an amazing studio.
Right. That's great. That's great.
So so I'm imagining your suitcase here. So it's a notebook, and then the little sets of
Yeah, watercolors, yeah.
and brush, and then you'll need a bowl of water.
There are brushes that I use that are actually, have you seen them that you put water in them? Have you seen them?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Okay.
they're just that you don't even need a bottle of water then, you just have a water brush. So, but your lunch tray on the airplane becomes my little studio. And then
Yeah.
there's often people who sit next to me and I have to like crouch over like this to prevent anybody from watching what I'm doing. But I have a lot of fun. It definitely makes a plane ride go very quick.
It
Yeah.
seems,
And,
it seems,
and some interesting conversations on the plane.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Jaguar came from a guy who was sitting next to me who had the little travel. They have a booklet, a little travel with all the food and the movies or whatever that they're going to be showing the airline. Do you know what I'm talking about? Just in the little pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had a picture of that Jaguar. So I grabbed it from him and I said, oh, thank you. And spent the rest of the plane ride painting that Jaguar. I did not see a Jaguar in Costa Rica yet. So,
so it seems like also, bronze sculpture is such a, unwieldy and expensive sort of medium. How did you end up
oh, the
migrating?
Broadway malls, yeah, well, it's not something I just do. The Broadway malls, when they approached me, I was trying to think, that's kind of how the snail evolved because I thought I could put a ceramic figure inside the snail. I was trying to think how to encapsulate some of the work. Like, I don't know if you saw the mermaid piece on 178th Street. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, inside
Yeah.
with the other.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that inside is ceramic. So, because it was encapsulated, but yes, it's very expensive. And I did editions of 3 and sold some of the work. So it kind of paid for itself.
So when you got the commission or however it works for the Broadway Mall, that was at the requirement was that it be in bronze? I mean, it was
Well, it was a conversation. I sent them some ceramic proposals and they started sending me pictures of shattered pieces and saying, we're not so sure that, but there are some,
Right.
there is some ceramic public works. So I was hoping that they would approve some of the work, but they didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
And
And
ceramic.
how did you end up doing
You know
this?
that artist Kaneko, I think, is that I'm saying his name correctly? He does these giant ceramic heads. They were also on Park Avenue at some point. Like that was ceramic.
Right.
So,
Right. And how did you end up doing the sculpture in Brazil?
oh, the sculpture that is in Brazil at their headquarters, that one.
Yes.
Well, I met Marcio Ayres. Do you know who he is? He was
No.
he was kind of a revolutionary character. I met him through my ex formerly known as husband is what I refer to him. So I'm keeping it positive, not saying ex, but anyway, he loved my work and wanted to put a piece at the headquarters. And so I made it here and he shipped it there and it's still there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And Chris Fadak is also asking, do you sketch or watercolor when you're in the city? How does your inspiration differ from when you're in nature? I mean, you're talking about doing it on planes also, so it really is just
Well,
as
when I do it on planes, a lot of times, it's funny because going to the destination, I just kind of start with what I'm doing in my studio, it's kind of the seed of what I start doodling or whatever. And on the plane back, it's the trip, dreaming about wherever I've been. And I don't really spend that much time in New York City these days. So if I'm there, it's pretty fast. I'm not really, I'm more seeing galleries and family and catching up with friends because, yeah, I'm more social in the city. I'm not that social where I live. It's kind of an ordeal to go somewhere.
I want people to know about your animals, companions at home too,
Yeah.
because I feel like they appear in your work as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe
It's
you
my
could say
family.
something about, your
Yeah,
families. Just
yeah,
a little bit about
very much. Well, that's how I ended up here. As I was divorcing my husband, I got a dog, and the dog just kind of saved my life. So I said, what can I do for this dog? So I got him a girlfriend, and we moved to the country, and
Oh.
and then I was asked to do a sculpture for the Central Park Children's Zoo. It's still there above the entrance. And they invited me, even though you're not really allowed to go in unless you go in with children. But they invited me to go in and hang out there to decide what I was going to sculpt. And I fell in love with these goats. They were just so cool. So I said, okay, I'm going to get a few goats. So once I got some goats, then I thought, okay, I'm just going to get a pig, and it started. And now they're all very much rescue animals. That's all I do. So I have 4 rescue dogs, and they're my family. They're just so wonderful. So I guess they're all kind of my children, and I feel that I learn a lot from them. And I love seeing the world through animals' perspective, which it's not so easy with wildlife to have that close connection. But with the animals I feel like every species has a different point of view, which I really love.
And now you have multiple pigs and rabbits and
I have 2 pigs. I used to have 4, and they lived till they were 20 and they passed away. And then I just had Sir Francis Bacon, and Sir Francis Bacon was lonely, so I got him a little girlfriend, and he has a young girlfriend, and they're very happy. And they're in my studio. They're just over there. So
They're in your studio?
yeah, they are house trained, but they're not inside because actually when I was working on the one piece that had the bloody guts in it, the moment after, I had a bucket of those glazed organs in my studio, and they spilled the organs all over the studio. So at that point, they have a fence, they stay out. So, yeah.
Where are you?
I'm upstate New York.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, thank you so much for doing this. We probably can close up, but I just so appreciate you, Kathy, and I just think you're
thank you. Thank
just
you.
so
I hope
happy
it
we
was
got.
okay. I read it, not talked
Oh,
it.
it's nervous making, but it's beautiful. So
Oh,
I
thank
mean,
you.
and now 19 more people know about your work. So I'm
Yeah,
just
no, and it's really fun to reconnect with you.
oh, it's really
Yeah.
well, we'll talk about that separately. But
Okay.
yeah, Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
And it's wonderful
wearing
what you're
the
doing
pig
there.
on-
Yeah.
Wearing the pig on my necklace from Kathy.
and I'm
Okay.
wearing my good luck rabbit.
Yeah, and your good luck rabbit. Okay. Thank you so much
Okay,
for.
thank you so much. Have a great night. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Aw,
you.
appreciate you. You
Bye.
wanted
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.